This broadcast will start in 30 seconds. This broadcast will start in 15 seconds. This broadcast will start in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The Voice of Stockton. For more information on The Voice of Stockton, go to thevoiceofstockton.org.
The views and opinions expressed in the following program do not necessarily reflect those of KXVS, The Voice of Stockton, or its parents, affiliates, management, and staff.
Afternoon, Stockton, California, and to anybody beyond the town listening as well, welcome to another amazing episode of The Phone Booth here at KXVS, the voice of San Joaquin. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, we had a little bit of a name change here with the station, but still same good old content. My name is Ed Heitman, and joining me in the studio today is my good friend and co-host, Brian Rodriguez.
Hello.
All right, now, first off, we would like to wish you all a very happy but belated New Year's. We had some pretty good stuff going on in 2018. Some good, some bad, some Bethesda. But we're very happy to get things started on a new track. So, yeah, welcome to the show. Now, for those of you who might be unfamiliar with what the show's all about, the Phone Booth is a show that is completely dedicated to the world of pop culture. Anything from movies to video games to TV shows, you name it, and we do our very best to cover it. Now, the first segment we're going to go into is a little segment called the Weekly Recap, where we talk about some of the things that happened within the week. Now, if you don't mind, Brian, would you mind taking away the first two little bits off the list?
Sure. So Slightly Mad Studios, the company responsible for the Project Cars games, has recently revealed their upcoming gaming console, the Mad Box. And it's a very interesting design. It actually looks sort of like a dented top hat, or, sort of a stereotypical cowboy hat. If you know the Arby's logo, it looks a little like that. But this is not the final design just yet, and even the tech has not been finalized, as the prototypes show and have the tech blurred out. Mm-hmm. But the CEO of the company, Nathan Bell, has said that the tech will be equivalent to a very fast PC 2 years from now. It'll have VR capabilities, will supposedly run up to 90 frames per second in each eye, which is really good, and that's actually really hard to do for VR. The console is estimated to be released in 2023, but if you want to see for yourself, there are pictures of it on the Nathan Bell's Twitter page. Now, it's interesting that they say it'll be equivalent to a very fast computer 2 years from now, but it'll be releasing 4 years from now.
Yeah, they claimed that they're going to be launching this console around 2023, which is kind of interesting, again, that you pointed out. One thing that I would like to say about the images that we've gotten so far for this console is that it definitely has a more unique design compared to other consoles that are out that have been out recently. In fact, Mad Hat Studios has even claimed that they want their console to be celebrated, which is why they decided not to make it like some regular staple black slider that would be hidden on shelves. They want it to be out there for everybody to see, to be carried around, and all that good stuff.
I think it'll be interesting. The statement that it'll be, equivalent to a PC 2 years from now when it's releasing in 4 years actually gives me a little hope, because consoles are never going to be able to appropriately keep up with PCs unless they essentially just become PCs. PCs and computers just sort of update too fast. New technology comes out too fast for consoles to keep up with. So it's good that they're setting, the bar for a very fast PC in 2021, which will still probably be good in 2023. It'll be outpaced by other things, but it's still a good bar to go for.
Oh yeah, for sure. And of course, we'll keep you all updated on any little bits of news that might come out regarding this console at some point within the upcoming year. So go ahead and take it on to the next subject.
Okay, so a while ago we mentioned that after casting Ruby Rose as Batwoman for their Elseworlds crossover, the CW was actually working on her own spin-off show. Well, now that is official, and they have actually ordered a pilot episode to be directed by David Nutter, a director who's actually won an Emmy for his directing on Game of Thrones, but has also directed episodes of The Flash and Arrow.
Now, I'm excited about this because one thing that has been noted in the CW universe is that there's been a huge lack of people from the Bat family. It's also, you and I have pointed out before that it's a bit of a running joke that we have absolutely no mention of Batman at all. Well, he gets mentioned every so often, but they don't really tease if he's there yet or not,
Yeah, Elseworlds actually kind of makes fun of that, in that Batman has actually been missing for 3 years by the time this happened, so about 4 years after Arrow starts, I believe the timeline work out. And there's actually Oliver Queen, Green Arrow, stating very emphatically that the Batman's just an urban myth, and he was, in fact, the original vigilante. And it's just this entire comedy bit with him. And it sort of makes sense as to why there are no mentions of Batman, in that he is sort of an urban legend, and no one outside of Gotham really wants to believe in him for potential ego reasons.
Yeah, but I find it awesome, though, that Ruby Rose is getting her own show as Batwoman, because from what I've heard, she did a really good performance as Batwoman.
She was pretty awesome.
Yeah, so I think that's pretty good, and I'm excited about that. On to the next little bit of news. There has been mass reports recently that claim that Blizzard has recently pulled off a mass banning out in South Korea regarding their game Overwatch. Earlier this week, on January 2nd, it was reported that Blizzard had banned over more than 18,000 players in South Korea from the popular game Overwatch, though supposedly the numbers are supposedly climbing since January 4th, but it's hard to prove that bit. Not only have they been banned, but their player names have been made public for people to see. And the reasoning for their bans are, as expected, general toxicity when playing, saying mean things or not really being a team player and all that stuff. I just thought it was interesting to talk about because it ain't very often that you see a ban that big, usually, in like a small period of time. There are purges where players are constantly getting banned over a period of time to try and fix the general flow of gameplay, but to have all this happen at once is interesting,
It feels like they had, a steady stream of people they wanted to ban, but they were all sort of saving it up just so they could start off the new year with a bang. Kind of. And I've noticed a lot of people out here in America and in the West complaining that, Blizzard put out, the list of the names of the banned players. People are complaining, oh, this is doxing, oh, this is terrible, how are they allowed to do this? This is actually not uncommon in South Korea or in Asian gaming in releasing the names of people that misbehave in games. It's sort of a, name and shame thing. Because doxing is not as big an issue there, mainly for cultural reasons. And I haven't actually seen Korean reactions to this yet. And I'd actually be very interested to see them. Because I believe it's really just a difference in culture.
Yeah, I find it interesting, too, that we haven't really gotten too much of a response. All we've really gotten was that I believe some people who are over in Korea playing Overwatch announced the fact that it happened, but we haven't really gotten too much of a response on it. And it's also really hard to track the numbers of how many people specifically have been banned, because over on that website where it shows the number of people who've been banned or whatever, it constantly refreshes whenever a new batch of players have been banned. So it started off with around 18,000 or whatever, and then at some random point it was like 1,900 or something like that. So it's kind of hard to keep track of the overall amount. But it's interesting, because it really is confusing from our point of view and whatnot, how they could pull this off and everything. But again, we're not in South Korea. We have a whole different thing of laws, different morals and whatnot, so it's just kind of hard for us to understand. But it's still strange nonetheless.
Yep.
Anyways, I'll pass this next little bit of news over to you, man.
Okay, let's see. According to The Hollywood Reporter, Matt Reeves' Batman film may finally begin filming in November of this year.
Hopefully.
If you'll remember, this movie was announced back in 2015, 2016? A while ago now.
Around the time that they were doing Batman v Superman.
So around 2016. And
Yes.
It was announced that the movie would have Deathstroke as the villain. And then it was announced that, oh no, Ben Affleck's not coming back to play Batman, but wait, maybe he is. Oh no, Henry Cavill's leaving. Wait, no, they're both leaving. Wait, no, neither of them are leaving. No one knows what's happening. Deathstroke's not going to be in it anymore. That's why they put him in.
Now it's the Penguin.
Yeah, now it's the Penguin. Now it's going to be, 12 different assassins a la Arkham Origins and the story that was based off. And now we're in a point where we have a script. We may not have a director because Matt Reeves may not actually still be attached.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a script, maybe a director, maybe a star, and it will maybe start filming in November of this year.
Now, whenever I think of that, about the fact that we might be getting a Batman movie finally from Matt Reeves, I want to get excited, but then at the same time, I also think of the Gambit movie that was going to come out. They were supposed to be working on a Gambit movie for the longest time. They were going to have Channing Tatum as a Gambit.
Yeah?
And they keep constantly saying, we're going to get it started. Production stops. We're going to get it started. Production stops. We're going to get it started. Production stops. It's like a broken record.
I mean, that was the same thing with Venom, and we eventually got it 11 years later and 2 Spider-Men later.
Yeah, I know. We had to wait for them to go into a whole nother universe.
Two whole new universes. The spinoff was announced after Spider-Man 3.
Oh man, that's right. I forgot about that. But and then there's the whole thing about Batman, because there's so much speculation over whether or not Ben Affleck is going to be Batman. And for some reason, the producers don't want to answer the question. They bounce around it when it's such an important one. We need to know who is going to be Batman.
And I think the producers themselves may not know, because ultimately the buck stops with Ben Affleck on whether he's going to be Batman or not. And it's possible he hasn't even made a decision about whether he's leaving or not. Which means the producers don't know, which means none of us know.
Oh, man. Well, if it does start, we will give you any information regarding the project if it finally goes into development. And any information that we might be able to get, we will share with you, the audience. Well, anyways, that about does it for our weekly recap, ladies and gentlemen. And without further ado, it is time for us to enter our next little segment, which I like to call Trailer Talk. And in Trailer Talk, Brian and I will talk about some of the latest trailers to drop within this week, but we also included a trailer from the previous week because we thought it was pretty interesting and you guys might enjoy giving it a watch. Mm-hmm. Now, all these trailers are available on Movie Clips Trailers or just about any other YouTube channel that has movie trailers out there. So we highly suggest you guys give them a watch if it seems interesting to you, because they're pretty good stuff. Starting off is Happy Death Day to You, the first trailer, of course. Now, the release date is February 14th, 2019. Starring Jessica Roth, Israel Broussard, Ruby Modine, and others. My apologies if I butchered any of those names. The synopsis is simply put, a sequel to the 2017 film Happy Death Day. Now, the movie Happy Death Day is a Blumhouse classic, as people like to phrase it. And it's the premise of a girl who gets killed by a serial killer on the day of her birthday. But she kind of has this Groundhog Day effect, where every time she dies, she wakes up at the very beginning of that day, and she tries to figure out who the killer is that keeps trying to kill her, or at least to stop him. And this continues off of it. I guess she ends up falling off of a building, a tall skyscraper in a hospital or something, while the killer's chasing her down. And as she falls, she wakes up at the very beginning of the day again, but now there's a twist. The killer is now trying to murder her friends, people who are around her when she, respawns, basically. So now not only does she need to worry about the person trying to kill her, she also has to not only worry about her friends, making sure none of them get killed, but now there's also a catch to where I guess she's starting to run out of lives or something. She brings up at one point, if she dies again, she might not be able to come back. So, failure is starting to become less and less of an option. But all in all, it's still a hilarious looking movie, and Happy Death Day to You seems to really embrace the fact that it is a ridiculous movie.
Well, that's good. I haven't seen the trailer for this one yet. I remember seeing footage from Happy Death Day, and I kept thinking, so this is just Groundhog Day with a serial killer in it?
It is literally Groundhog Day with a serial killer in it.
Which, I mean, I guess that's not a terrible premise.
Yeah, you know, and I thought it was interesting that they put a little bit of a twist on it. Well, anyways, I'll pass this next little trailer over to you, man.
Okay, Prodigy, the first trailer. The U.S. release date is February 8th, 2019, starring Taylor Schilling, Brittany Allen, and Colm Feore.
I want to say Feore.
Feore. I'm sorry if I pronounced that or if we are.
We have problems with actor names, ladies and gentlemen.
We do. Synopsis is, a mother concerned about her young son's disturbing behavior thinks something supernatural may be affecting him. Directed by Nicholas McCarthy. No, I got that one right.
Yeah. Now, that's an interesting premise. They suspect that he might be, like, possessed or something like that. He's highly intelligent. From the time he was born, he learned how to say mama really early. And it's the whole premise that he grows up being a really smart little kid. But then it kind of goes into Omen territory. Have you ever heard of the Omen?
Yeah.
About a little kid who's supposedly like the spawn of Satan or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what they're doing with the Prodigy here. It seems like the boy, there's something mentally wrong with him. But you can't, the premise says that it's something supernatural. But you could easily not even think of that. Because it just seems like the kid's going full mental and, you know, and whatnot. It looks good, kind of, for people who are into movies like The Omen. I myself I'm not really into those kind of films, but it seems interesting enough. The cinematography in the trailer at least looked really good, so hopefully there'll be some good visual cues, at least in the movie and whatnot. But yeah, anyways, on to the next trailer. The first trailer for Arctic. The U.S. release date is February 1st, 2019, and it's starring Mads Mikkelsen, Maria Thelma...
Go for it.
Smaradotir. I know I butchered that.
That's as close as we're going to get to it.
That one's spelled, man. Well, anyways, the synopsis is, a man stranded in the Arctic after an airplane crash must decide whether to remain in the relative safety of his makeshift camp or to embark on a deadly trek through the unknown in hopes of making it out alive. And it's directed by Joe Penna. Now, one thing the synopsis fails to tell is that he's also carrying along a woman. And she seems hurt, or badly hurt to the point where he drags her along with him on a sleigh. Now, I have to admit, I'm not usually one who's a fan of survival movies. You know, person trapped in uncharted territory, lots of danger around them, they have to find a way to escape and get back home. But the performance the main actor puts into this movie, Mads Mikkelsen, he does a really good job. Mm-hmm. Kind of like how Peter Dinklage's performance is in We're All Alone Now, or it was that one movie where he was like the last person on Earth, basically. Mm-hmm. It's where like it's very subtle facial cues and whatnot, but his performance is really good, and you really do like whenever the trailer shows like scenes of intensity, you feel the intensity in it, which is something that certain movies like, say, The Day After Tomorrow, in my honest opinion, couldn't really pull off. There were certain points in time where it seemed like there was supposed to be immense danger, but you don't really feel like the characters were in danger. And that's what Arctic does pretty well.
I'm going to make a prediction. The woman isn't real, but is a symptom of some sort of psychosis from his real life before the plane crash that he has to eventually work through as he carries this woman to safety.
Oh, dude, you're predicting a Shyamalan twist.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that uncommon of a twist. It'll be interesting if there's, say, a different twist, or maybe the woman's actually real, and that's the twist. They're trying to build it up as she's fake, but she's in fact real. That'd be a fun twist. They're twisting the twist. So
Twisting the twist. It's a double Shyamalan.
Yeah, they make a 180, and then they make another 180, and they've just gone in a big circle.
The Shyamalanian circle twist. That's gonna be an official word now. I'm gonna remember that. The Shyamalanian circle twist. Okay. Now, the next trailer, I'm going to pass it on over to my friend Brian, because he was the one who suggested the trailer, and I thought it was pretty good, so I'll let him talk about it.
Okay, the first trailer, this trailer is the first trailer for Us, which is Jordan Peele's new movie, director of Get Out. I'm going to do this in a bit different format, so you know what to expect. Release date is March 15th, 2019, starring Lupita Nyong'o, Winston Duke, and many others. Synopsis is husband and wife Gabe and Adelaide Wilson take their children to the beach house, hoping to spend time with their friends, but their serenity soon turns to tension and chaos when a group of strangers arrive. Now, this movie looks crazy. It's sort of your home invasion monster horror movie, and they're attacked by these supernatural beings of some form. They have super strength, super speed, show up in their house. They have these bags over their head, and when they take them off, they have the faces of every family member. They are identical to them. And I don't honestly know what's happening. There's something to do with rabbits in there. There are lots of rabbits throughout the trailer, and even the title card has a rabbit hidden in it. Mm-hmm. What do you think?
I definitely thought that it was interesting. I know that at the very beginning, when they're over at the beach, the son, the younger boy in the scene, he runs up to a person that has bloodied fingers, and he's wearing like a big old trench coat over him, your staple scary movie stranger and whatnot. When I first started watching the trailer, when I started watching the trailer and the people came into the house and whatnot, and it's the whole family staring at them ominously, you really got this vibe of The Strangers, I think it was called, where like the random people broke into the family's house and just messed with them just because they were there. But then there was the reveal that these are creatures and they happen to look exactly like the family. And there's a lot of mind games being played within the trailer. Like, the people, they say that these creatures think exactly like the people they mimic. So it makes it even more suspenseful when they're trying to get away, because the creature knows exactly what it is that person's probably going to try and do.
There's also the recurring motif of scissors. We see the strangers, for lack of a better term, holding scissors a lot throughout the film. Mm-hmm. Including one scene that sort of mirrors the beginning scene you were talking about, where it's all four of them
four of them
on the beach next to each other holding scissors in the same pose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I will give it that. Jordan Peele seems to do a really good job of making movies where it plays mind games with the main character. He did that very heavily with Get Out. And I'm definitely interested to see how it's going to be applied with Us, because this still plays mind games, but it seems to be doing it in a completely different method as opposed to what Get Out was. Yeah.
I'm assuming there will be some element of racial allegory in it, some statement on the current state of African Americans in America, like Get Out had, and Jordan Peele is somewhat known for now.
I want to go a little further than that. I don't think it'll be necessarily a reflection on African Americans and America. I want to try and say that it might be just a natural reflection on humanity as a whole, the way we are nowadays. You know, the way people think and act and all that stuff. Especially because it's a movie where your enemy is somebody who looks like you and completely thinks and acts like you. So it'd be a total reflection every time a person encounters one of their creatures and all that stuff.
Possibly.
Yeah. So, I mean, that sounds interesting and whatnot.
It'll be interesting. I'm definitely going to give it a watch, even though I don't typically like horror movies.
Same here, man. Same here. And that about does it for Trailer Talk, ladies and gentlemen. Again, you could find any of these trailers on YouTube. Feel free to let us know what you think about these trailers. Leave a comment, like, and all that good stuff. Now, it's time for us to enter our discussion pieces for today's episode. And one of the discussion pieces we're going to start off with is... It's interesting, very meme-worthy, for sure.
Dumb. It's so dumb.
Very dumb.
It's so dumb.
Now, should I or should you explain what the Bird Box Challenge is?
You go ahead.
Okay. So, Netflix released a movie called The Bird Box, and it's being very well received by people who are watching it. Imagine The Happening, but instead of the plants doing it, it's a mysterious monster. Some people say it's social media. Some people say that it's advertising. It's all this stuff. But the way it works is that as soon as you see this creature, this manifestation of people's fears and whatnot, you immediately kill yourself. You can't glimpse at it at all. Though it also has weird effects, like sometimes you just fall in love with it, sometimes you don't get bothered by it, but I'm not going to dive into what the movie is itself. I'm going to dive into the challenge that was made by this movie. Now, there's a main part of the movie where the main character and her children, they wear blindfolds over their eyes to try and make it from one point to another because it's supposed to be like a safe spot for them and everything. And they encounter a lot of difficulties because they have to get all the way over there blindfolded, and they carry some stuff around like twine and everything. This, thanks to a YouTuber, I forgot her name specifically, this sparked the Bird Box Challenge. And the way the Bird Box Challenge is that you try your best to spend a certain period of your day. She did 24 hours, and this eventually branched out to 48 hours, and sometimes less than that. Or you try and go about your entire day completely blindfolded. You go to the store blindfolded. You try walking around the neighborhood blindfolded. You try going to work blindfolded and everything. And while sometimes it's very mundane, some people who do the Bird Box Challenge just stay in their home and not really do anything, which is fine. There are people who are getting hurt because apparently walking around blindfolded isn't such a safe thing to do.
Yeah, who'd have thought?
Who'd have thought? And it would seem that this has gotten so bad that Netflix actually had to make a statement imploring people to please not do the Bird Box Challenge.
It went something along the lines of, we can't believe we have to say this, but please do not do the Bird Box Challenge. We don't know how this started, but it's a bad idea.
The whole thing, man.
Yeah, because there have been some reports of people driving while doing the challenge.
Yep.
Because why not? Why not drive, the 2-ton metal death machine at high speeds while blindfolded?
Yeah.
Perfect idea.
And I find the whole thing to be hilarious because, I mean, I kind of feel bad for Netflix because they have to vehemently prove that they don't condone these challenges, which makes me think of some of the really stupid challenges that happened last year. I know that Drake had to openly say that he doesn't condone people doing the challenge where they play one of his songs and they drive their car, step out of it while it's driving, and record themselves dancing by the car door and everything. And
Again.
that was, yeah, just...
And I think we all remember the Tide Pod Challenge, which I was actually somewhat okay with, because...
What?
And I'm going to get flack for this. I know I'm going to get flack for this, but I'm a firm Darwinist, and I believe that if there are people dumb enough to eat large amounts of soap, we should just let them eat large amounts of soap and sort of get rid of them.
That's bad, dude. That's bad.
You know what? I'm going to get flack for it. I don't care.
But, I mean, there were people who knew that eating a Tide Pod was bad, but then they still did it. And there were still companies out there that even made gummy Tide Pods. Little gummy things that looked like Tide Pods to get people to want to eat Tide Pods. Tide even had to do a commercial telling people not to eat the Tide Pods. Yeah. There's even a skit on College Humor where the CEO had to tell people not to eat the Tide Pods.
Yeah, that was actually one of many Tide Pods, because the Tide Pod Challenge actually started back in, 2015, sort of laid low for a while, and then sprung back up last year.
Mm-hmm.
And the Tide Pod Challenge, the only person that's getting hurt is the idiot eating soap. With the Bird Box Challenge or that Drake dancing challenge, a lot of other people could potentially get hurt because you're being an idiot. Don't do these things.
Yeah, and it's not only the other people around you. You yourself could get into a lot of trouble. You can get hurt, you can get mugged or whatnot, and we just want everybody out there to be safe. We don't want you guys getting hurt. We don't want you guys getting mugged or anything. Please don't do the Bird Box Challenge. It might sound like a really good idea for a YouTube video to get a couple of views, but just remember how quickly challenges usually die out within a certain period of time. I mean, let's not forget about the time that everybody was doing planking, But we digress. But that was all we had to say about that. Just please don't do the Bird Box Challenge. Please, just please don't do it. We don't want you to get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Going on to the next little discussion piece, though, is one that is spiraling into controversy within this year that we can only really refer to as the Ellie incident.
Okay, I'll take the backstory for this one.
Okay.
So, recently, a female player in Overwatch named Ellie rose to the top of the leaderboards in the North American server and was eventually signed by the Overwatch League team Second Wind. However, about a week after her signing, she announced that she was leaving the team due to harassment, doxing threats, things like that. And when I first saw the story, I thought, okay, we can talk about this, we can talk about toxicity in the Overwatch scene and in esports in general, and, that'll be it. However, there's now a twist to this, in that Ellie isn't real. And what I mean by that is that Ellie is in fact another player named Punisher actually playing, who hired a 17-year-old girl to do the on-camera work and the voice work of pretending to be Ellie. And Punisher claims this is some sort of social experiment. It's a really dumb one. It's the equivalent of saying yelling fire in a crowded theater is a social experiment, and it's probably significantly hurt a lot of women's chances to be taken seriously in esports, because now there's going to be the question of, oh, are you even real? But yeah. So yeah.
And the weird thing about all this is that they claim for this to be a social experiment. I'm not really sure any data was even really gathered, or if there was even like a main goal with this experiment. I understand that usually experiments are done to make a statement, but then that statement has to have some kind of statistics behind it to prove it and whatnot. All this did was just get people upset.
Yeah, because he was doing this before Ellie got signed, so we don't know if the goal was eventually to get signed by an Overwatch team to hope they could just get around it, because Second Wind actually put out a statement on how this happened that we'll get to a little later. But what was the goal for this? Was it just to prove that trolls are cruel to female esports players? Yeah, we've known that for a while. You're not proving anything. You're not making a point here. You're just showing something everyone already knows.
And one thing that I would like to point out here, after I was doing a little bit of research on the subject, it seems as though that this girl wasn't the first candidate for Reaper's little social experiment. It seems that before her, he had asked several other female gamers if they would be interested in doing this social experiment. And screen-capped messages and chats even popped up with Reaper telling people that he is doing this as it's happening. And then we also have people trying to question Ellie if she is genuine or whatnot, because one of the main things that got people was that her statistics were really, really high for a certain period of time, and then out of nowhere they all dropped dramatically, which got people to suspect, was she being boosted? Because in certain countries, I guess, player boosting is as far as illegal. Now, if you're unfamiliar with what boosting is, allow me to explain. Boosting is essentially when you get somebody who is a very high-ranked player, somebody who's really good at a video game, to make an account for somebody who's not that good. Somebody who's probably started off, or they don't put too much game time into it and whatnot. And the person, the more experienced person, will play on their behalf and really climb the ranks, go as high as possible, and then hand the reins over to this less experienced player, so that way they can continue with that. And that was everybody's suspicion, because she was really good at Doomfist at like 80% success rate or something, and then it dropped down to like 40 or 50%. But I find the whole thing odd, because while this was a social experiment, and I'm pretty sure that he got his results that he wanted or whatnot, to what benefit did the experiment even come from? I understand that he's trying to prove a point that trolls can be really mean to female gamers and try and disprove their legitimacy. But all you've done is prove the trolls' disbelief of female gamers' legitimacy, which directly hampers their chances of being in the pro league, and perhaps even hindering the chances of more females being interested in playing games in the first place, or being interested in going pro in the first place.
And see, I have even less faith than that. I mean, he's claiming it's a social experiment. That could just be an after-fact claim. I wouldn't be surprised if he, in fact, did this to reduce the legitimacy of female players, to sow those seeds of doubt, to show that it can happen, and hey, maybe it's already happening. I mean, I don't know for sure. Maybe it is. Maybe it is a social experiment. Maybe he's just a jerk. I don't know.
And the thing that bums me out about all this is that there's a lot of people out there who are constantly trying to prove that female gamers aren't as good as male gamers. And it's something that I've always had a problem with over time. One of my favorite... I've been very vehemently hooked on Team Fortress 2 lately. And one of my favorite streamers is Skyman Slash, who also does a lot of really great content regarding the lore and the world of Team Fortress 2. So there are female gamers out there who are really good. But then there are always these trolls whose defense is, oh, well, if they're good, it's probably somebody else playing for them, or they're fake or whatnot. And we're always trying our best to try and diffuse this statement. We want people to stop saying that. We want people to stop saying, oh, well, that person's probably not real. This whole incident gives them reason to prove that it does happen. And any work that we have done to try and level the playing field has now been hit by a cannonball, basically. So, because now any troll out there who wants to make this statement will go, oh, well, do you remember the Ellie incident? Obviously, this stuff happens. And this angers me because I feel that in the world of video games, gender is way more important than it ever should have been. When it comes to video gaming, everybody should have just had an even leveled playing field. Gender never should have had anything to do with it. Race never should have had anything to do with it, and neither should have age. We all should just be people who play video games. And if we're good, we're good. There shouldn't be any other prerequisites to the character to prove why that person might be good or bad or anything like that. We should just be gamers. And these kind of incidents make it really hard for the gaming industry to just go back to a bunch of people who play video games.
Yeah. I'm going to read Second Wind's response to this entire thing here, because I think it has some good information that can, we can discuss. Okay, here we go. This is their statement. When we originally onboarded Ellie, we had just recently lost players for various reasons and were desperately needed to find a substitute. As a team, we have always had faith in the leaderboard when it comes to scouting players, and in our search for a new player, we found Ellie as rank 4 in the North American servers. Our team members had played with them in competitive ladders several times and saw them to be very skilled with a deep hero pool. Due to our need to fill a main position as well, a closing deadline for roster submissions, and our team having experience with the player, we extended an offer to play on Second Wind as a substitute. When we originally contacted Ellie, there was nothing that would spark suspicion. They seemed to be very genuine and willing to work with us on calls and within private messages. Due to the fact that we do not have any physical contact with our players, we wanted to verify their identity, but also wanted to respect their privacy as well. We genuinely had no idea of what was to come, and at the time we underestimated how important it would be to set an example as the first team to take on a female player for contenders. As soon as Ellie was announced, many questions came up regarding the legitimacy of the player. We reached out to Blizzard early on to help verify their identity and calm the suspicions about our newest player, doing the best we could for the time being. During this time, we worked with Ellie to improve their public presence by prepping them for interviews, streams, and encouraging an environment where the play of the other team members publicly. This unfortunately fell through due to Ellie opting out for personal reasons we did not want to press them for. Ellie began receiving doxing and personal threats due to their anonymity. In a bid to respect Ellie's request for privacy, we contacted Blizzard about not having their name published on the Contenders website. As a team, we admit we handled this poorly. More could have been done to support our players, but we had found ourselves unprepared for the attention Ellie got upon their onboarding. We had full faith in them. Due to our desperation to fill a roster, we unfortunately overlooked crucial information that should have been paid more attention to. We did not properly allocate enough time to communicate with the public as a means to support our players, and as a result caused more questioning that could have been avoided. Ellie decided to step down on their own, and shortly afterwards we announced their departure from the team. As of today, Blizzard has gotten back to us on the background of Ellie and notified us that they are not who they claim to be and have discovered that the Ellie account was used for purposes we do not support. We apologize to the community as a whole for not handling the situation better as we should have, and we will aim to be better. So there's actually quite a bit of information there about the motivation behind it. A lot of people have accused Second Wind, when Ellie was resigned, of just hiring her as sort of a diversity hire, to be, to have a woman on the team. And it looks like that wasn't actually their intention. They were just desperate to fill their roster because they lost a bunch of players. And, I mean, you look at number 4 on the North American servers unsigned, you go, oh yeah, we should get them. And if they're desperate and they're on a deadline, they should have done more background checks. They should have looked into this deeper. And there should be better processes for this, but you can try to understand how this happened. I don't think it should have happened, but you can understand how it happened.
One thing that I find interesting about it all was that Second Wind had absolutely no idea about who Ellie was individually. They didn't have any They didn't know that this person was a fake account. Then they also pointed out that there were multiple factors they could have looked into, which could have given them hints that Ellie wasn't who they prove them who they said that they were and everything, and they probably could have pursued that, but they didn't. But at the end of the day, I can't really get mad at Second Wind. Sure, they could have looked at this all better, but they're kind of just stuck in the crosshairs of this all. Because if it wasn't Second Wind, it would have been some other random team out there in Overwatch's competitive league who would have been interested in getting Ellie put on. After all, the experiment was to get Ellie signed on to a team. It wasn't to specifically be signed up to Second Wind.
Well, we again, don't know the parameters of whatever this experiment was. And I actually disagree. Because I think that Second Wind was desperate for players and they got sloppy, but I don't think that's really an excuse and that we should let them off for this. They are a professional sports team. Imagine if, say, a professional football team signed a player and then discovered that this player wasn't even real, that they got catfished. That would be unacceptable, and we wouldn't let that football team off the hook for it. And I don't think we should let Second Wind off the hook for it. Yeah, they were desperate. Yeah, they're new. Yeah, they were, going into this new area, but there should have been something. There should have been an in-person meeting, maybe an in-person gameplay session to make sure that they are. And you can bet there probably will be after this.
Mm-hmm. At least a Skype call or something.
Yeah, and they said they talked to Ellie through messages and through, they had calls with her. And I think that the actor was probably trained to do this, or whoever it is that, is the face of Ellie. But I think there need to be now in-person gameplay sessions to actually measure that this person was actually playing.
Yeah. They did prove the identity of the person. They didn't give a name, but they did say that Ellie actually was a 17-year-old girl. It's just that she admitted to not being good at Overwatch. Mm-hmm. She just, let Reaper do the gameplays and whatnot, which eventually started the suspicions. Apparently there was fumbling of the microphone, which they suspected to be the mic being passed over to her or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess I agree. And I believe they were having a meeting with Blizzard to discuss this whole thing.
Yes, we know as of last night that the meeting has yet to happen, but apparently Second Wind either is currently having or will have a meeting with Blizzard in the near future to discuss this. And you can bet Blizzard isn't happy that essentially someone faked their way into their, multi-million-dollar esports franchise.
Man. But as for now, all we can really do is just see what the consequences are. And the major chain reaction that is going to happen because of this. Not only is this going to impact Blizzard, not only is it going to impact how things work in Overwatch's competitive league, I feel this is going to cause a huge social chain reaction. Social media is going to blow up about this whole incident. Everybody's going to have their own sides of the argument about this, and it's weird because it kind of felt like the whole toxicity thing was already bad enough. It feels like somebody just took a baseball bat to the hornet's nest now.
Yep.
And what angers me even more about this is that this is how we're starting our new year in video games. One of the major things that we're talking about in the video games industry is the Ellie incident. An incident that I bet you nobody really wanted to have happen in the first place. And all I can really think right now is, why was this done? What was the end goal to this experiment? We know that it was a social experiment, but why? Just why?
I don't know.
I don't know either, man.
But this is going to be bad. It's not just going to be in Overwatch, but I'm betting that every major competitive female gamer is now going to get questions of, are you even real? Can we trust it? Is someone else playing for you? They already got this, but now this ridiculous accusation has been justified because now we have an example of it.
I feel like now the term Ellie is going to be used a lot more frequently in video game chats. It's going to be a label. It's going to be a label. It's just going to be an immediate thing that you're going to slap onto female gamers. They're all going to be called Ellies or something like that. And I really hope that isn't the case. But all we can do is just see what happens. What's going to happen.
Yeah.
But pushing that aside, instead of focusing on what's happening within this year, we decided our last discussion piece will be to look back on some of the things that happened in 2018. Some of the things to look back on. Maybe some good things, maybe some bad things, just some stuff to talk about.
Yep.
Now I think one thing that'd be that would be definitely we can't not talk about this. Would be E3 2018.
E3 2018. That was.
Some really, really good games.
I believe that was our first episode, was covering the EA press conference.
You know what? I think it was. Yeah. And then the second episode, we only covered EA's list.
Yeah,
of releases.
Because they aired the day of our first episode, and the rest of it was after, so we covered it the next week. But yeah, that was our first episode.
Yeah, and then the second episode also had our very first guest, Ira Ford, in there to talk about it. And we also had my little brother, too, as a guest, which was interesting enough. We got some really good releases, or at least good trailers. We had gotten trailer for God of War for the PlayStation 4, a complete redo of the overall tone that the God of War games used to have. Instead of just being a very violent hack and slash, we actually got a good, heartfelt story with a much more matured version of Kratos.
It's a great game.
Great game. And I definitely hope that they are going to make a movie for God of War on Netflix. People did fan posters with Jason Momoa all decked out to look like Kratos in the new version of the game, and he looks amazing.
Yeah, there's no confirmation of this. There's been no real hints from Sony or Netflix that it's happening. I'd like to see it, and we know they are working on a sequel to the new God of War.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that.
Mm-hmm.
Some other games that came out that did pretty good.
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
Marvel's Spider-Man. It's really been a great year for Sony.
It really has. Sony's got some really good stuff. They even launched the trailer for The Last of Us Part 2, which also looked really good. I'm still kind of waiting for some more trailers because I kind of want to see what happened to Joel. They've really been dancing around that point. You know, they showed him a little bit in the first trailer, and then the second trailer he's mentioned. But so far, we've yet to really see how things are going over there.
Probably be a while until we get more info on it.
Yeah. One thing I can say for sure, though, is that The Last of Us Part 2's gameplay looks insanely realistic compared to any other game of its genre. When somebody gets hit by a melee weapon, you can almost feel the impact from when that person gets hit. When guns are being shot, there's actual recoil and all this stuff, like a gun is actually being fired. When you're hiding around, you can even hide under vehicles in this game now, and everything about it feels real, which is great, because usually in apocalypse games, they kind of glorify the violence a little bit, you know? It's like when you jump into an apocalypse game, you're there because you want to attack things, attack zombies, attack other marauders and whatnot. The Last of Us Part 2, from what it looks like, they tried their best to de-romanticize the whole violence and whatnot. It doesn't feel good. You feel a little uncomfortable when it all happens.
Naughty Dog has said that while the first Last of Us was based around the feeling of love, Last of Us Part 2 will be based around the feeling of hate. It's going to be a much darker game, I think they said angrier game.
And I'm definitely looking forward to that. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how Ellie has matured and progressed from after the events of the first Last of Us video game. There were also some bad games that came out within this year. One of them, the first announced game that was a train wreck at E3 2018, was the Command & Conquer mobile game. You remember when that was announced?
Command & Conquer Rivals, where they showed a trailer for it, and then they had people coming out and play it, but we still couldn't figure out what it was until they said at the very end, oh yeah, this is the new Command & Conquer game, bye!
Yeah.
Because they knew that if they said that up front, they would be getting booed. So they just waited till the last second to drop that title and run.
And the gameplay took so long, and nothing was happening.
Yeah, it's not fun to watch a tactical mobile game, especially when a lot of it, we're watching them playing on the phones. We're not actually watching the screen. A lot of it, we were watching, like, over their shoulders them playing it. Like, why?
And the person was trying so hard, people hyped like, oh man, he just threw up a new base. Those soldiers are they don't look too good. This person might win.
And she actually liked the announcer because he was trying so hard.
So hard. It's like he was trying to hype up something like it was an esports event when it was just a demonstration of a really bad mobile game.
That was. Do you want to move on to the big disappointment? The big disappointing game of this year?
There were two.
Oh, yeah.
About the worst announcement of 2018 that trophy would have to go to Diablo Immortal.
Yeah, this was not actually at E3. This was later on, but we're going to count it in here.
Because this was at BlizzCon, in case anybody was wondering.
Yeah, Diablo Immortal. A mobile Diablo game, stripped down, created by a developer that has a history of throwing microtransactions in willy-nilly. I mean, I feel like I can't say a lot more than we did in our coverage of it, but let's just remember this.
Do you remember when they announced it at BlizzCon, one of the fans asked if it was an out-of-date April Fool's joke?
Yeah.
And the people on stage had to try so desperately to work around that without looking upset or panicked about it.
They could have salvaged this in so many ways. They could have had a gameplay trailer for Diablo 4, but given reports, it looks like Diablo 4 is nowhere near even close to having gameplay finalized. They could have had simply a video saying, yeah, we're confirming Diablo 4. They had this sort of thing saying that there are multiple Diablo projects in the works. They just needed to say Diablo 4 is in development.
That's what they did with Elder Scrolls. When they announced Elder Scrolls 6, all they did was just say, Elder Scrolls 6, it's being made. Have some trees with the logo popping up. It works.
Yeah.
But that was not the worst game to come out within this year. A runner-up, I would have to say, would be We Happy Few when that came out. A game that was being released so many times, but its final product was somehow worse than its previous releases.
It started out as a rough indie game alpha, then it got acquired by Gearbox and given the full AAA treatment, double the price, a season pass, it's a big collector's edition that has nothing in it. And then when it launches, it is a broken, buggy mess of a game.
I would highly recommend that you guys check out Jim Sterling's review of We Happy Few, because it's hilarious watching all the gameplay bugs that he experienced, especially a particular old lady that can just float away from benches and then right back onto the benches and all that good stuff.
Yeah, Jim Sterling actually recorded lines of voice acting for We Happy Few back when it was this darling little indie, but it looks like he got cut from the game when he started criticizing all the stupid decisions that were made regarding it later on.
And it's such a shame that the game did as bad as it did, because I believe the people who were working on it were the people who also worked on BioShock and BioShock Infinite.
It was just it was members of the team. They created their own studio, I believe. It was Compulsion
Games. Yeah, that's what it was. But the worst game of all time, I feel like I need to do a drum roll. Fallout 76, made by Bethesda, announced at E3 2018 to a tidal wave of boos, which was confirmed when the game was finally released. Multiple bugs everywhere. Enemies will sometimes walk around in T-poses. Sometimes the guns aren't even in their hands, they're floating near their hands, and they're disassembled, but they still shoot at you. Long barrels and short barrels are the same. In fact, in this year, in 2019, it turns out that the nukes, one of the things to achieve the end game,
one of the central features,
yes, to bring out the final boss of Fallout 76, is broken now. The countdown to use these nukes got reset to all nines, wasn't it? 9,999.
Yep, 9,999 hours. The complete incomplete indicator for it both showed up overlaid over each other. The thing was just completely broken, and I believe they have actually took the entire game down to fix it, and I believe it's now working again. But the officers that you have to kill to get parts of the nuke code, they wouldn't spawn.
Yeah.
It was just completely broken in every way. A central pillar of this game.
The game was broken so much that one player even took upon it to make himself an endgame boss. Built his bounty up as high as he could, and then let people know, hey, I am your endgame boss. Hunt me down and kill me. It gives you something to do.
Yeah, there are so many issues with this game. We could probably spend the rest of the episode talking about it.
And we've even had one talking about Bethesda.
Yeah, and it's just... Fallout 76, I believe, is going to be indicative of Bethesda going forward. They used to be known for their long development cycles and, I'm going to say quality, because in retrospect, none of their games were that, well made, but they were beloved games, But this one, it just misfired on so many steps. It showed their arrogance. It showed that they thought they could get away with anything, that they could, just put a product out, fans would buy it, and they would love it, regardless if there was any actual quality or effort put in.
And I find it strange that they had that much blind faith into their player base, especially considering that so many people had their problems with Fallout 4 when that game had come out. Some people had their problems with the whole village building aspect. Some people had problems with the fact that everything was still in the same game engine because Bethesda refuses to change game engines. Mm-hmm. But we respect that a little bit. People like putting mods into it and everything. And
still think they could update it.
Yeah, they really could have updated it. And when they teased 76, they made it seem like this was going to be an evolution from what Fallout 4 was. People had their concerns, and they were hoping to God that Fallout 5, whenever it came out, was going to be a huge change of pace, brand new story, not just a recycled version of Fallout 3, and then it was going to be good. And then there were so many things that were wrong with it. And this game flopped, not even in the sense of a video game, but in the sense of Bethesda's marketing practices as well, with the whole controversy known as Baggate. Now, in case you guys aren't aware of that, you guys can get the full story on one of our previous episodes. In fact, our last one, Bad Bethesda. But to sum it up as a too long didn't watch kind of thing, Bethesda advertised really nice looking canvas bags to go with a helmet of their complete edition pre-order. They got a really cheap nylon bag. Bethesda tried to say that they're not going to do anything about it. Then they reimbursed people with basically $5 worth of in-game money that they couldn't even use to buy the fake version of the bag. They eventually got promised the bag, given a ticket to submit to a website. Turns out a lot of the personal information got exposed right onto the front of the support page. Now they have to wait 4 months to get it. Now it's just a short version of what happened.
Yeah, that's not even taking into account all problems with the beta, all the problems with the rum they launched to market this. This has just been...
Oh, we haven't talked about the rum yet.
Oh, we will have to... I don't think we have enough time to talk about the rum if we want.
We might be able to go a little bit over the clock if we want to.
So basically, Nuka Dark Rum was a rum that was created to, to capitalize off the Nuka brand and Fallout, the soda brand. And it's, it's a nice... well, apparently it's not a very good rum. But people expected it from the marketing and from, past experience. During Fallout 4, they released actual glass bottles of Nuka Quantum, that the rum bottle would be made of glass. And it kind of was, just not in the Nuka bottle shape everyone was expecting. It was this, normal glass rum bottle in this giant sort of ugly, matte, plastic Nuka bottle. That doesn't actually work in that if you try to pour from it, it actually spills your drink all over. And it has just been... This one wasn't directly Bethesda. This was a company called Silver Screen Bottling, but I figure Bethesda at some point had to okay the design of this. And it's just been... Customers are upset. Apparently the rum's not very good either, which... I mean, I don't know. I've never had rum.
I honestly wouldn't really trust the quality of any kind of alcohol that was just the official trademark drink of some video game. I'd expect it to be like only subpar at best.
The goal of this wasn't the rum. The goal of this was to have a cool bottle to collect.
Conversation piece.
Yeah. And they didn't even give them that. And I think we spent enough time talking about Bethesda for now. Why don't we move on to movies? Because we've been focusing a lot on video games. What did you think of movies this year?
Oh man, movies. We got some pretty good ones. We definitely got Black Panther.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic.
Avengers Infinity War, a really, really good Avengers movie. Though I still admit my personal favorite was Captain America Civil War, but Infinity War was definitely a really good one. We got the Halloween reboot, which was supposed to be from what I've heard, is a really, really good rendition. Mm-hmm. We got Bad Times at the El Royale, one of my favorite movies of 2018. I would definitely recommend everybody gives that one a watch. But then we also got some not so good movies within this year.
We got Mortal Engines, which I saw and was so disappointed by. I had such high hopes going into that movie because it looked amazing, but it turned out to just be very pretty, but a mess of a story of characters. The acting wasn't great. The story was barely there. It was all really an excuse to show off a few scenes of this giant moving city and a few lasers. You notice we don't actually get that much outside footage of the moving city. A lot of it is either set inside or not near it.
Yeah, I could see that being a bit of a bummer. Now, some other movies that came out this year. I believe one movie that people said didn't really do too well was the Happy Time Murders. It was a comedy making fun of the whole Jim Henson puppet kind of film with Melissa McCarthy in it.
That came out last year.
Oh yeah, it came out last year. I remember it being popular because for a certain period of time, Sesame Street tried to prevent the Happy Time Murders from actually showing up in theaters because of one of the trailers. Their tagline was "No Sesame, All Street."
Mm-hmm.
But then again, of course, that suit failed because they couldn't genuinely prove that was a Sesame Street reference, even though it was.
Yeah.
But it flopped in the same sense that films like Epic Movie and Disaster Movie and Movie 43 failed, where they focused so much on crude humor that it didn't really follow through with punchlines. It's like you were supposed to laugh at how raunchy it is. And sometimes, raunchy humor can be hilarious. One of my favorite comedy movies of all time was Superbad, a movie that had some pretty good raunchy humor in it and everything. But I guess it didn't really do too well for everybody. Didn't the Justice League movie come out last year?
No, that was in 2017, tail end, but I know it feels like it just did. But what did come out last year was Aquaman.
Yes, Aquaman.
Which has actually been getting pretty decent reviews. I haven't seen it yet, and it's not doing nearly as well as Wonder Woman did when it came out, but it can be counted as one of the 2 not bad DCEU movies. Another movie that subverted expectations, Bumblebee. Bumblebee has been getting rave reviews, and it is now considered the good Transformers movie.
Yes.
Which I didn't think was possible. I was okay with Transformers 1, didn't love it, but everything after that was just abysmal.
It had this thing called Transformers Syndrome. It created the term Transformers Syndrome. Where, like, the first one was really good, and then every single one after that did worse and worse because they were focusing on wrong aspects of the movie. And instead of focusing on the whole battle between Autobots and Decepticons and protecting humanity, it kind of just turned into a clusterfest of giant robots punching each other, which did well in films like Pacific Rim when they were fighting giant monsters. But Transformers wasn't really fit to be just throw in a new Transformer every single movie and that's what we're riding on. I remember when Age of Extinction was advertised, and I really wanted to watch it just because they showed Optimus Prime on a dinosaur, and even that was short. But with Bumblebee, it did really good because it was one of the few Transformers films that Michael Bay could not get his hands on.
He was a producer on it, but he did not direct it. It's also the first Transformers film to be under 2 hours.
Which is amazing.
Especially when the last 2 movies were pushing 3 hours, and it was just... It hurt at a certain point. I wanted to walk out of the last night. In retrospect, I really just should have. It would save me so much time.
And another good movie that had come out within 2018 was Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
I want to see that one so badly.
I really want to watch it. It looks like such a good movie. A brand new sense of animation. Instead of just doing live action, they decided to go the cel-shaded way, which really makes the whole Spider-Man acrobatics even more enjoyable to watch, especially with the fact that everything's animated. That's why so many people like playing the Spider-Man video games, because they love the way it looks when you're swinging around downtown and everything. And this movie really contributed to that.
Yeah, and people pointed out they use a lot of animation techniques that you don't see a lot, like animating on 2s, where, a single frame, a second is 24 frames of animation. So animating on 2s, they actually only animate 12 frames for each character, but they interspace them, so you've got 24 frames. So there's always movement on screen, but it also creates this effect of it being a little stop-motion-y, or,
A little bit. Usually when people animate on 1s, I've been looking into animation a lot lately, so I recently looked up on this. When people animate on ones, it's usually for a lot more specific movements, like fingers moving and whatnot, are usually animated on ones. But quick movements like an arm extending or jumping really fast, that's usually animated on twos. So the fact that this movie was mostly animated entirely on twos is interesting because it helps contribute to the fact that Spider-Man movies, they're supposed to be very fast-paced action movies, especially when he's swinging around. It's supposed to be really fast acrobatics and all that stuff. And I'm glad that they did it on twos. And I'm also glad because this was the first time that Miles Morales was on the silver screen.
Yeah, he was hinted at in Homecoming, but this movie both introduced Miles Morales and it introduced a lot of characters we're probably never going to get in the, big blockbuster live-action ones like Spider-Gwen or Spider-Woman or Ghost Spider, whatever she's called now. She's called so many different things.
They change her name so often.
We got Spider-Ham. We got Spider-Man Noir. We got Penny Parker and the Spider.
Yeah.
We got... Oh, God, there was another one. Wasn't there? What's her
No,
name?
Peter Porker, Spider-Man Noir, Spider-Gwen, Miles Morales, the Amazing Spider-Man with Peter Parker, and
there was the Ultimate Spider-Man that was actually voiced by Chris Pine, though he wasn't marketed heavily. He only appeared for like one scene before they, spoiler alert, killed him, though they did that in the comics to introduce Miles Morales anyway, so I don't feel that bad about spoiling it.
Yeah, and also I'd like to point out that this was the first time that we got to see an animated Marvel movie with the Kingpin as like the main villain, because a lot of people always think that Kingpin was always a Daredevil villain in comic books, but a lot of people don't realize that he started off in Spider-Man.
Yeah, we got Kingpin, we got the Prowler, we got the Scorpion, I believed, we got the Ultimate Green Goblin. We got a lot of things that we're never going to get in live action, but work really well in animation.
And one thing that I'm happy about with all of that is that the Into the Spider-Verse is going to create its own universe, or they're hoping to create a universe. They're going to try and have Gwen Stacy's Spider-Gwen or Ghost Spider or whatever as like the overall head of this universe. But I'm just excited to see different renditions of Spider people, especially because the creator who's working on the second one said that if the box office numbers do well enough for the first Into the Spider-Verse, he will introduce Japanese Spider-Man into the second Spider-Verse. The ambassador from hell, who has a giant spider megazord. I am not lying, that is real. And it has one of the best intros ever. You should watch the show, and yes, there is a live-action show for Japanese Spider-Man. And he was even introduced in the Spider-Geddon comics. And honestly, I kind of hope that they do focus on the whole Spider-Geddon thing, where like all the Spider-Verses are clashing together and all that stuff.
Yeah, we know there's going to be a direct sequel to Into the Spider-Verse. We know there's going to be a female-led spinoff. We know they're going to do something with Spider-Ham, but they haven't really confirmed what. They've also confirmed that they've actually used this to sort of clear up what's happening with things like Spider-Man Homecoming and Venom, and how they kept saying they're in the same universe but not in the same reality. Turns out the Homecoming Spider-Man in the Marvel Universe is part of the Spider-Verse. So are the older Spider-Men, like the Andrew Garfield, the
Tobey Maguire,
Tobey Maguire. Venom is also in the Spider-Verse, just in a different, universe. So they've actually used this to sort of clear up what's been a very complicated and kind of dumb confusion. But I like it. I like it.
I'm kind of hoping that we get to see Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man and Tom Holland's Spider-Man in the next Spider-Verse. Because one thing that people have always said is that they'd like to see any of those actors come back. Tom Holland is still pulling off the role of Spider-Man Homecoming, but I've known for so many years, a lot of people that I know have said they would love to see Tobey Maguire back in action at least once as Spider-Man. And we all admit that the only way that that's possible is through a multiverse, through some crossover between Spider-Man that we normally would only be able to see in comic books. But with the Spider-Verse movie being made, we now have the opportunity to hopefully at least get a cameo from one of these spider people.
It'd be interesting because the Amazing Spider-Man that appears in Spider-Verse, they've actually said is based on like what a potential future for the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man could be. They have said that it is not directly that Spider-Man, but it's a potentiality for him.
Definitely.
Which is interesting.
Now, we're coming close to the end of our episode for this week. first I would like to ask, is there anything that you're looking forward to seeing in 2019 this year?
Oh, so much. There's, of course, Avengers Endgame, which is going to be, the cap on this 11-year story they've been telling. There's going to be Captain Marvel, Marvel's first female-led superhero movie. There's going to be Shazam.
Yes.
Shazam's coming out this year. There's new Godzilla. That's
King of the Monsters.
probably top of my list. There's just so much I'm excited for.
One movie that I'm definitely looking forward to once it comes out is the Joker movie with Joaquin Phoenix.
Oh, the Joker. I forgot that was coming out this year.
Yes, they're working on that. They're supposedly working on Suicide Squad 2, Birds of Prey, whenever we finally hear anything about that as well.
We know Harley Quinn's going to be a big part of it. There's also a Harley Quinn movie in development.
There's a Harley Quinn movie in development, and there's also supposed to be a movie focusing on the relationship of Harley Quinn and Jared Leto's Joker.
Which we haven't heard about that in a while. I'm kind of hoping it's been canceled just so we have less Jared Leto Joker.
I don't think we'll be able to get. Enough Jared Leto Joker. Remember, he's trying to executive produce and star in his own Joker movie, which would be in 2020. But yeah, there's a lot of good things to be looking forward to this year. Now, hopefully, there's not going to be too much bad news going on within this year. But of course, you know that us, being the lovable journalists that we are going to do our very best to relay any of that information to you guys once that actually happens. But in the meantime, that ends this week's episode of The Phone Booth. My name is Edward Heitman, and joining me in the studio is my good friend and co-host, Brian Rodriguez.
Good to be back.
It is good to be back, and we are here to stay, ladies and gentlemen. Every Saturday from 1 to 2, we are going to do our very best to cover anything pop culture, movies, comic books, video games, TV shows, you name it, and we will do our very best to cover it. Now, please stick around. We have some great content coming up today here at KXVS, the voice of San Joaquin. And if you're interested in watching any of our past episodes, feel free to check out our playlist on our Facebook page, KXVS, Voice of San Joaquin on KXVS, or the Voice of Stockton. I'm not sure if we were able to fully change the title yet, but
It's hard to do on Facebook.
KXVS Radio is the best way to find us right now. And we have a playlist for all of our episodes right now. Feel free to check it out. In the meantime, have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon.